I don't remember the exact moment the car spun out of control, only the screech of tires and the sickening slam as metal folded against metal. My head cracked against the steering wheel, and when I came to, smoke curled up from the hood, the night air sharp in my lungs. Somehow, I managed to crawl free, dragging my leg that wouldn't hold me, my hands scraped raw from gravel. When I finally made it to the front steps of my parents' house, bloodless and trembling, I thought just for a second they'd help me. I collapsed at the doorway, half-conscious, whispering, "Mom, Dad, help me." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. The door swung open, and there they were, dressed to go out. My father in his pressed shirt, my mother in her glittering necklace. For one fleeting moment, I thought I was safe. But then, Dad stepped over me like I was nothing more than a piece of garbage in the way. "Don't bleed on the rug," he muttered. Mom's heels clicked beside my ear. She looked down, curled her lip, and laughed. "Pathetic! Crawling like a stray mutt! We don't have time for this, dinner reservations are waiting." I tried to grab her wrist, desperate, but she yanked her arm free. "Don't touch me. You'll ruin my dress." My voice cracked. "Please, I think something's broken." Dad leaned down, his breath hot with contempt. "You're always broken. Tonight, at least, you're out of the way." They both stepped over me, their perfume and cologne trailing behind as they shut the door, locking it from the outside. Through the window, I saw them laugh together as they walked toward the car, my sister joining them, snapping a picture like it was just another glamorous night out. The engine roared and they drove away. I lay on that porch, half dead, staring up at the ceiling I'd grown up under, realizing the truth I'd spent years denying. They didn't just hate me, they wanted me erased. I dragged myself back to the wreck of my car, somehow flagged down a passing stranger who called an ambulance. At the hospital, as the doctors worked on me, I kept hearing my mom's words replaying in my head. "Pathetic. Crawling like a stray mutt." My dad's voice echoing, "At least you're out of the way." That night, something inside me hardened. I realized I'd been waiting all my life for their love, their recognition, their approval, and they would never give it. Not when I was a child, not when I was bleeding on their doorstep. So I made myself a promise as the IV dripped into my arm. If they could walk away from me like I was nothing, I would make sure one day they had nothing left to walk back to. And this time, I wouldn't crawl. Recovery wasn't just about healing bones, it was about building armor. My jaw was wired, my ribs wrapped, my leg in a brace. Each breath hurt, each step a battle, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the memory of that night. My parents' laughter echoing as they stepped over me like a rug. They didn't visit me in the hospital. Not once. My mother sent a text 3 days later. "Stop milking it. You're alive. Be grateful." My father didn't bother at all. My sister, meanwhile, posted pictures from fancy restaurants with captions like, "Family first." I lay in that hospital bed staring at those photos, remembering her giggling as she walked past me, bleeding on the porch. When I was discharged, the nurse said gently, "Someone will need to pick you up." I laughed bitterly. I already knew no one would come. I wheeled myself out, called a cab, and went back to my tiny rented place, bruised, stitched, forgotten. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I started planning in silence. Nights were long, pain meds barely dulled the throbbing, but they gave me time to think. If they thought I was weak, I'd let them keep believing that while I stripped away everything they worshipped. I thought about what they truly valued. Not me, not my existence. They valued status. My mom flaunted her jewelry, her dinners, her perfect family image. My dad bragged about his business connections, his flawless reputation in the community, how people shook his hand at church and called him a man of integrity. They valued being admired, envied, praised. And that was where I'd cut the deepest. First, I dug into the company Dad ran. From the outside, he looked untouchable, the successful small-town businessman with a spotless image. But as I asked quiet questions, pieced things together through public records, and overheard gossip in places I knew they never checked, cracks started showing. Unpaid invoices, loans taken under my name years ago without my consent, fake signatures. It wasn't just neglect, they'd been bleeding me dry for years. I gathered everything: bank statements, receipts, even screenshots of my sister flaunting things online that had been bought with debt shoved onto me. Every paper cut of betrayal became part of a file I organized neatly, not for the police, not for exposure, but for myself, for leverage. At the same time, I began rebuilding my own life. Physically, I pushed harder than I should have. I went from a walker to crutches to a cane to walking unassisted. Each step I took felt like reclaiming ground they thought they'd taken forever. Professionally, I forced myself into overdrive. I worked extra hours, picked up projects, climbed past the whispers of that poor kid from the Johnson family. I didn't correct them. I let people believe I was invisible, that I was nothing. Because people like my parents never look down until it's too late. The first test came at a charity gala. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I went anyway, standing in the back in a rented dress, blending into the crowd. My parents were front and center, my mom dripping in jewelry, my dad laughing loudly, shaking hands, my sister clinging to her boyfriend's arm like she was royalty. They didn't even notice me. But others did. Quietly, someone whispered, "Isn't that their other daughter? The one they never mention?" The words were like fuel. I smiled, nodded politely, and left before they could see me. I didn't need confrontation, not yet. What I needed was timing. For weeks, I watched from a distance, studying their routines. When they bragged about dinners, I noted the restaurants. When my dad spoke at church, I sat in the back pew, listening to his hollow speeches about family values. When my mom bragged about sacrifices for her children, I swallowed the bile in my throat and let her dig her own grave. They didn't know it, but I was already writing the ending. And I decided it would happen not in private, not whispered, but in the one place they flaunted their perfection the loudest Christmas. Every year they threw a lavish party, people from church, Dad's colleagues, Mom's friends, my sister's crowd of fake admirers. They decorated the house with golden lights, towering trees, and enough food to feed 3 families. It was their stage, and I would tear the curtain down. So I prepared. I printed documents, copied receipts, highlighted every forged signature, every debt in my name. I even had screenshots of texts they'd sent me while I was in the hospital. Mom's cruel "stop milking it," Dad's silence. I gathered photos of myself in recovery, bruised, wired shut, while they were out dining in glittering restaurants. I made sure it was undeniable. Then, I tucked everything neatly into an envelope. The guest list was already published online. They always bragged about who would be attending. I circled the date in red ink on my calendar. As Christmas crept closer, I could feel the rage sharpening inside me, turning into something steady, something cold. The night they left me crawling and bleeding, they thought they'd walked over me for the last time. But now, it was my turn to walk over them. The night of Christmas came draped in gold. Their mansion glittered like a stage set, every light twinkling, every wreath perfectly placed, every window glowing with warmth that never belonged to me. I stood at the edge of the driveway for a moment, watching the guests file in, hearing their laughter, their greetings, the clink of champagne glasses. My chest tightened, but not with fear, with control. I walked in through the front door like I belonged there because in truth, I did. Every inch of that house was built on the money they had squeezed out of me, the credit cards they had signed in my name, the debts I had paid. Yet I was always the ghost. Tonight, the ghost would speak. The living room was filled with people. Dad at the fireplace, booming his laugh, his arm slung around a business partner. Mom twirled in her emerald dress, showing off her necklace as guests complimented her sacrifice for her children. My sister paraded her new engagement ring, squealing for attention. Not one of them saw me at first, until I cleared my throat. The music softened, eyes turned. My mother's smile froze. My father's hand dropped from his friend's shoulder. My sister whispered, "What's she doing here?" I walked to the center of the room, pulled an envelope from my bag, and set it down on the grand piano where everyone could see. My voice was steady. "Merry Christmas." Dad tried to recover first, puffing out his chest. "We didn't expect you. This is a private event." I cut him off, my voice sharper than glass. "Oh, I know. You didn't expect me when I crawled to the door with broken ribs either. You stepped over me then. But tonight, I'm standing." The room went still. A murmur rippled through the guests. Someone whispered, "What does she mean?" I opened the envelope one paper at a time, fanning them out across the piano. Bank statements, credit cards, forged signatures, text messages, photos of me in a hospital bed while they were out at dinners. Every lie they had buried under their golden lights laid bare in black and white. Gasps cut the air. A woman near the front covered her mouth. A man muttered, "Good God!" Mom lunged forward, hissing under her breath, "Stop this now! You'll ruin everything!" I leaned closer so only she could hear. "That's the point!" Dad tried to snatch the papers, but a guest got there first, pulling one up to read. His voice shook with disgust. This is your daughter's hospital release form, while you were out spending money?" A wave of silence crashed over the room, then broke into whispers, anger, shock. My sister stammered, "She's lying! She's always been jealous!" I pulled out my phone, pressed play. Their voices filled the air, crystal clear. Mom's laugh, pathetic, crawling like a stray mutt. Dad's snarl, "You're always broken. Tonight at least you're out of the way." The recording played over the speakers, echoing through their perfect house. The room erupted. Gasps, curses, people backing away. My parents' faces drained of color. My mother clutched her necklace like it could save her. My father tried to roar over it, but no one listened. Their friends turned their backs. Dad's business partner muttered, "You disgust me," and walked out. Mom's closest friend tossed her wine in her face before storming off. Even the priest from their church shook his head, eyes full of contempt, before leaving silently. My parents' empire collapsed in minutes, not because I screamed, not because I begged, but because I let their own cruelty speak louder than I ever could. When the last guest slammed the door behind them, the house was silent except for my mother's ragged sobs and my father's heavy breathing. They turned to me, their voices trembling for the first time in my life. "Please," Dad whispered, his pride gone. "Don't do this. You'll ruin us." Mom's hands shook. We can make it right." I stared at them, remembering the weight of gravel digging into my skin, the sound of their laughter fading as they drove away that night. My voice was calm, almost cold. "You already ruined yourselves. I just turned the lights on." I turned and walked out, leaving the papers scattered across the piano like ashes. Behind me, I heard my father's voice break, not in anger this time, but in desperation. "Don't go, please." I didn't look back. Outside, the winter air was sharp, clean, and mine. For the first time, I wasn't crawling. I wasn't waiting. I was free, and they were the ones left bleeding, not on the street, but in the wreckage of everything they loved. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.